Hello everybody and welcome back to Broken Brand, and today we're going to be talking about some new upcoming movies that are on the radar and are getting greenlit for pre-production. Now, the first one is, as you can see here, The Viewfinder. Now, I know exactly what you're all thinking, and me too. What? Yes. Warner Brothers, they did a pretty good job with Barbie and other board games. And I will say Barbie did huge numbers. I watched Barbie when it hit Max, and I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed it. It was kind of funny. It was humorous. Except for that weird feminist rant by I forget her name. She was on that Superstore show. I forget her name. She was great in that. She's great in Superstore. Hilarious. But yeah, it was like all the problems she pointed out was like, yeah, men aren't causing those problems. Those are problems that other women are putting on you. But anyways, that was just one of those things. I'm like, yeah, men don't care about that junk that you're caring about, but other women care about that. Yeah. But anyways, I'm not going to do a Barbie review. Anyways, The Viewfinder. Now, first off, I want to address the elephant in the room. The fact that the credit for this picture is from someplace called the Museum of Jurassic Technology really offends me. It really does. I grew up with a viewfinder. I'm a kid of the 80s. Absolutely, I had a viewfinder. I had a red one. And I remember it had a bunch of stuff. And I remember I had I want to say it was Sesame Street and Disney cassettes that went with them. And you put it in, and you started on slide 1. And it would tell a story on the cassette, and then you'd click it when it'd beep, and it'd move to the next scene. You see the scene, it'd talk, and then it'd beep, and you click it and move to the next scene. It was kind of like a interactive storybook type thing. I remember that as a young kid, and I don't know if that exists still, or if this is just some weird memory that I made up. I don't know. I swear that existed. And I remember having the viewfinder. I remember my little brother played with it too. We had things from you could buy, we had scenes from my grandparents bought one when they went to Greece, and so it had a bunch of the Parthenon and a bunch of stuff, all the architecture stuff from Greece, and it was cool. I remember that. It was just kind of cool to look at, and I feel weird that this is ancient technology. It's not ancient technology. Please don't call it Jurassic technology. I already feel old. I already got gray in the beard. I already feel old as dirt, and my hair is kind of not blonde anymore. And it's... So, yeah, I feel a little bad about that. But let's get on to what could they do? I don't know. And I'll be honest, when they did Battleship, I thought, what on earth did they plan on doing with Battleship? And honestly, it was a lot better than I thought it would be. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Battleship. A lot of people, it's a terrible movie. I'm like, it's not terrible. It's funny. Don't get me wrong. The premise was interesting. Just the way it all went about, I was like, yes, they made a terrible B movie with a high dollar budget. I was in. I enjoyed Battleship. Not going to lie. And so I enjoy it for how ridiculous it was, but it was a fun movie for me. So could it be something like that? I don't know. I'm really kind of racking my brain trying to think how you make a movie out of the viewfinder. I've got a few ideas, and they're off the wall, crazy. But the most sane one would be the viewfinder is the plot point to discovering some secret or something magical or something like that, just kind of oh, this is oh, now we can see, now we know where to go and blah blah blah. Now it's some mystery or something like that. That's the most common, that's the probably the most realistic thing I can think of. Some of the other ones I'm just going to keep to myself because they're a little bit bizarre that I don't even want to admit that I came up with. But anyways, it's getting a movie, and I was like, okay. But it was also, as I'm going through this article, Mattel's got a lot in the puck that they're going to try. Polly Pocket. Honestly, yeah, you can do a Polly Pocket movie. I think you can pull that off. No problem. Hot Wheel. Yeah, I think you could do a Hot Wheel movie. Bob the Builder, of course. Uno. That's more baffling than Viewfinder for me, because I haven't come up with a scenario for Uno yet. And honestly, I don't know if I can. Matchbox cars, same with Hot Wheel. Yeah, you can pull it off. Magic 8 Ball. There's no way that this doesn't become some sort of like witch or mystical movie that it tells the future and things like that. There's just anything outside like that being, you could almost go full horror with Magic 8 Ball and it'd probably do okay. That's the only thing that's like, what? Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You could do it. If you did something kind of like Real Steel, which is a good movie. I think Real Steel's an underrated movie. It's got Hugh Jackman in it. It's a great feel-good movie. You know, little guy beats the big guy. And it's the robots are just cool looking. I mean, and it's just, to me, like Rock'em Sock'em Robots was already done in Real Steel. That's just me. I'm like, we already got it. It's called Real Steel. But I guess we're going to take that, and it's probably going to be something similar to that, and who knows. But the Viewfinder, I don't know. I guess now that I see, I didn't catch that. The Viewfinder was introduced in 1939. Okay. It was still being used in the 80s, for sure, because I had one. So, I guess it's almost 100 years old. Okay, fine, put it as Jurassic, but still, that's just crazy to me that it's that old, but I guess it is. But what do you do? I mean, seriously. Viewfinder is weird. Uno is even weirder. We're going to get something crazy if they do an Uno movie. I guess, yeah. And further down, where was it? Like, Mattel was thinking, Mattel was going to do Masters of the Universe toys and action figures. Okay, they did Masters of the Universe. They've done it. Like originally, like back in the 80s. Man, that between that and Beastmaster, those were like some of my favorite movies I watched over and over again. Those were, Masters of the Universe was fun. We won't mention the despicable, terrible reimagining that Kevin Smith did on Netflix, other than the fact to warn people, don't watch it. If you ever liked He-Man, don't watch it. I had Castle Grayskull. I had so many figures. I kicked myself. I don't know what I did with them, but man, I kicked myself for not holding on to those things. Gosh. I probably could have sent both my kids to college with just selling those things. I had so many. I had like all of them. I had He-Man, Battle Cat, Skeletor. I had all of them. Like, I had a huge collection. I had Grayskull. My best friend across the street had, I forget what the Skeletor's castle was called. But it was cool. It had like this weird rotating snake on it. And that you could move inside the outside the castle. And it was really cool. So he had that one. I had that one. We played He-Man together as kids. I mean, between the two of us, I know we had them all. every single one of them between the two of us. And man, what they're going for today, whoo. But back to the topic at hand. I mean, could we get a good live action Masters of the Universe? Yes, we could. I think we could. If you stick to telling a story from Masters of the Universe. You know what? Just pick an episode from the cartoon, the original cartoon. Retell the original. I don't think it's been long enough to do a remake, but I do think that I hate remakes, but I do think a new story focused on He-Man, where He-Man is the main character and not just the name and the title of the movie, could do well. I think it can. Because it is just... Are you kidding? If it's done well, it's going to make money. The Netflix one was not done well. It was not successful. So, I think that's good. But the Uno thing, that is really getting me. I do kind of hope they go full on evil, terrible future, some type of thing with the Magic 8 Ball. I really hope they do that. But if you're doing Hot Wheels, why Matchbox? What are y'all thinking? I'm not sure. I mean, you've got the product. I know the point of making these movies is to boost toy sales, and that's what they were. That's what they were originally too. That's the reason they had the cartoons and G.I. Joe. They had the show to boost toy sales, and it worked. And then, they made a big mistake of killing Optimus Prime, and they learned their lesson when they did the G.I. Joe movie, not to kill off Duke, and he was just in a coma. He wasn't dead, he was in a coma, and he woke at the end, just with a line of dialogue. They had to change it, because they're like, oh, we can't introduce these new ones, because everyone wants the original ones. So, they got to learn from that mistake, too. You learn that mistake back in the 80s. Don't forget that mistake, okay? You got to remember, we love Optimus. We love Duke. Polly Pocket, it's not going to be for me. Definitely not for me. And it may introduce this new generation of Polly Pockets. What do we had? We had Mighty Max. Mighty Max. That was the male version of Polly Pocket. I was trying to think of it, because back in Mighty Max. And they were like the little cool little things. They were about that big and had little figures and little scenes and everything. I remember they existed. I don't know if I actually owned one, but I knew they existed. I had a cousin that had several Polly Pockets, and so I knew Polly Pocket existed. And Bob the Builder, I'm surprised they haven't... I know they got the show, but I'm not sure what else they're going to do with Bob the Builder. So that's kind of like a continuation of what they've already got. So absolutely, Bob the Builder is going to do great. But yeah, I wonder what the more is, though. I get why they're doing it, but I'm like, Viewfinder. It's more absurd than Battleship. It's so weird, but we could get a weird, twisted story that makes sense. I really don't know. This seems just crazy that they're making a movie about Viewfinder. I'm wrapping my head around this, just trying to accept this concept that somehow they pitched this and it went through. Because honestly, all these other movies, you can sell your toys. Viewfinder, is it really going to help boost toy sales of Viewfinder? With all the technology we have today, Viewfinder? Everything else on this list, yeah. Go for it. Masters of the Universe, go for it. But Viewfinder, I'm not sure how they're going to... Is it just going to be nostalgia toys? I really don't... I'm not seeing the full picture here of why they're starting with this one. Any of these other properties they've got, man, would do well for retail sales. But Viewfinder just seems so odd. I mean, with all the technology today, Viewfinder is really, really out there. My only thought is they're going to do some weird update. It's going to be like a digital viewfinder that you put up and you watch. Maybe that's what it is. It's a new version of the viewfinder, like it's digital, and you put it up and it just shows it right there. But I'm kind of like, that's just like putting a smartphone right here. I don't know. I don't know the end game of what they're planning to do with Viewfinder to boost sales for the company and the retail market. It's odd. But it is what it is, right, guys and gals? Everybody out there, it is what it is. I'm curious to see what we're going to get, because honestly, there's nothing more intriguing than to see what they pitched and how they got it approved for a Viewfinder movie. So, with that being said, let's just let that roll around in your head, confusing you for months, maybe years. Who knows how long before we actually see anything from this announcement. But just let that roll around in there, being like, they're making a Viewfinder movie. Why in the world are they making a Viewfinder movie? Because that's what I'm going to be thinking until the first trailer drops. That's going to be like a thought that's just going to be running in the back of my head constantly until we get the trailer. And if it doesn't come to fruition, I want to see the script, because I just got to know what your plan was for this, because it's so bizarre. And marketing and toys, what were y'all planning on doing? I don't know. This is so weird. But until next time, my friends, as always, I love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it.